All right, lovely people. Today we are going to really work on identifying how anxiety manifests in the body. So many of us are familiar with the thoughts in our mind and how much energy it consumes in our mind. And a lot of us don't yet know how to work with the anxiety that manifests in our body. So that's what we're going to be doing today, focusing on working with the anxiety instead of fighting against it or staying up in the stories in our mind. Because when we go down that rabbit hole of thoughts, what usually happens? And feel free to share what usually happens when you go down the thought trail.
It gets worse.
How does it usually get worse for you?
I feel like my emotions just get like louder and louder and louder. I feel a lot of like sadness and shakiness and anger with my anxiety, and those just get louder and feel much less tolerable.
Yeah, and it makes sense that our emotional experience gets more intense the more we're thinking, because our mind and our body are always communicating to each other. Our body is listening to what our mind is saying, and our mind is interpreting what our body is feeling. So if we're thinking more and more and more catastrophic thoughts, our body is going to respond accordingly. And a lot of people think if I just stop thinking this way, then I'll be able to calm down. But it is much more efficient to actually calm the body down in order to shift how we're thinking, because every thought we think, every behavior, every emotion is actually driven by a nervous system state, which lives in our body. So we're going to learn how to work with the body. So why don't we start with just beginning to first connect with the body? So just, if it helps, you can put a hand over your chest or your core and just take a moment to notice your breath. And if you still notice a lot of activity in your mind, that's okay. We just want to begin to slowly shift the focus from thinking into the feeling body. And just take a couple deep breaths to create some more internal space in the body. Feel the body begin to soften with each exhale. Notice the little shifts that each breath brings. And as you're becoming more conscious and aware and connected to the body, I want you to bring into your awareness your anxiety. And even as I say that, you might start to notice something happening in your body, like a, yeah. So I want you to begin to identify where you felt that first sensation, where you feel the anxiety living in your body. And if you would like to, you can feel free to share where you're feeling your anxiety.
I feel it in my chest.
I felt it in my tummy, my abdomen, my tummy.
Mine is like right where the throat and chest connect and kind of like top of head today.
Yeah. And I want you to get to know this sensation just a little bit more. And I want you to see it simply as sensation. So often we have a story and meaning attached to what we feel, but I want you to just really tune into what is the quality of sensation I'm noticing in this part of my body? Is it tight? Is it heavy? Is it hot? Is it fluttery? Is it dense? Is it fast moving? You might even want to use imagery here and see if there's a color that you associate with these sensations in this part of your body. Maybe there's an image or a shape that's coming up too. There's no right or wrong imagery here. We're just practicing new ways of relating to the anxiety. And now what I want you to do is to begin to allow your body to move in any way that she's feeling in response to this sensation. There's no right or wrong. We're just allowing the body to do what the body knows how to do, which is move with emotions. So maybe you feel the impulse to deepen your breath. Maybe you feel the impulse to change your posture. Maybe you feel the impulse to provide touch. We're just beginning to explore how we can move with these sensations and allow our body to take a turn in processing the anxiety instead of only processing it in our minds. And it might feel silly and uncomfortable at first. You might have an inner critic saying, am I doing this right? Do I look weird? Just notice that voice and let it go. Keep listening to what it is that your body needs in response to these sensations. And just notice any shifts that you might be experiencing in that part of your body where your anxiety lived. Notice any shifts in sensation, any changes in the imagery you initially might have come up with. Even if the shift feels very, very small, just take note of it. And just very slowly and gently begin to bring this movement exploration to a soft close. Finding a place of stillness. Maybe returning to the breath that we first connected with. Beautiful. And when you feel ready, you can slowly open your eyes. And we can take some time to just share what it was that you noticed in that.
I can start. I noticed that just by you saying the word anxiety, my shoulders were like, I didn't feel that anxious before, but just the word made my body feel more anxious. And I did feel really uncomfortable in the beginning, trying to just move that anxiety feeling. But with the time of moving, I think it started to become a bit more comfortable. It was just in the beginning, I did feel funny and like, oh, a bit of resistance.
It's so common to feel that initial resistance, especially if it's something new. And usually our mind is the one that wants to run with the anxiety and say, no, 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 we need to think about this. And so when we begin to allow our body to process it, it's like, is this okay? Am I going to be okay without thinking through this and overanalyzing? So I love that you leaned into the discomfort and the resistance and kept with the process. And then you notice like, hey, okay, it's getting more comfortable. It's the sensations are becoming more tolerable. Beautiful.
I can share next. So I noticed when we're first tuning into the anxiety, I noticed it was in a different place than I had expected it to. I thought that was interesting where I like even went into it with an expectation of where I felt anxiety, but then just kind of grew curious of, well, where is it actually living? And I was kind of surprised to find it more in my core, and it felt really tight. Like I didn't realize how much I was clenching or like truly holding those muscles in my body until actually tuning in and allowing it to move. I noticed that it started and it felt really tight and small, but through the movement, it started to expand, and I found a little bit more space in that too. So I thought that was interesting.
Beautiful. Yeah, often anxiety is this energy of contraction. Our whole body is contracting and like bracing itself. And it sounds like you were able to kind of allow that to open and soften and relax a little bit more and really shift that initial experience. Beautiful.
Yeah, I kind of similar to Mariana. As soon as you were like, okay, let's notice the anxiety, I felt a glimmer of it, and it actually got much more intense throughout the whole experience the longer that I was with it. And I had a really hard time sticking with the body because I have a external distraction happening right now, my sweet dog. And I kept getting yanked into my mind over and over and over and over again, like 100 times. So I just kept guiding it back to the body. It was hard because both the mind and the body were uncomfortable experiences, but the body felt much more safe and tolerable to sit with because it was just sensation versus the mind, which was making me much more aggravated.
Yeah, that's beautiful awareness. There's definitely going to be times where it feels really difficult to have that presence and have that focus. And it really is like building a muscle, building a skill, continually redirecting our focus back into the body when the mind is throwing everything at us. Like, you need to think about this, and what about this, and what about that? So it really initially can feel so challenging to make that shift, especially if we have internal stressors, external stressors. It requires a lot of like, I'm going to focus, and I'm going to choose to focus on what's happening in my body, even though it feels really uncomfortable initially. And the more we lean into it, it's almost like we're getting that muscle stronger, the ability to be present in our bodies rather than constantly in the noise of the mind.